lies, and I want you to back it up. You called me at the right time, as soon as I was done my work. Yeah, are you ready? Because we're not going to be lying.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's going on, bro? I need you to go ahead. What's this history you lying about? This white history about what was the last thing you just said? You were cultivating things for millennia before blacks even made it out the jungle.
Yeah,
Makes
who was
sense.
feeding whites whenever they were in Europe and blacks weren't even there? In fact, there was
Say,
no contact with blacks. Blacks
say that
didn't
one more
even
time.
make it into the New World until the 1600s, when whites were already there from like the 1200s if you count the Vikings, and the 1400s if you count the Iberian people. So the blacks weren't there to even feed them or to cultivate this stuff. Now, I will concede that the Native Americans showed them corn when they didn't had never seen corn in their life because it's a New World food, and potatoes. But Native Americans weren't farming it for them. They just said, here's a food. And then they got some of the corn nuggets, corn kernels, and planted it themselves and cultivated. And then 200 years later, the first slave from Africa shows up and we're put to work on some plantations. But something like 10% or less of Americans had slaves, and so this idea that whites couldn't make cornbread without blacks, or macaroni and cheese is a black food, or the spices are black, even though whites were sailing all over the planet on the spice trade, going to the Indies to bring spices home, is a silly notion, dude. It's Afrocentrist revisionist history that whites somehow needed black slaves to teach them how to cook macaroni and cheese and cornbread and fried pork. It's nonsense. I've been eating collard greens and mustard greens my whole life in the South. That's kind of my point. Is not that blacks didn't take something and change it and adjust it and make it theirs, just like they did with maybe basketball or the electric guitar or any of these other things. That's the nature of living amongst other people. But to say that you developed it and made it and created it is just it's revisionist. It's silly.
So it's absolutely not revisionist and silly because I need you to correct something. First of all, um, so we were already here. We were already in America. Isn't that correct?
At what year?
Since the beginning of time, since we've been here. We've been a civil. We've been human since 200,000 years ago. We've already populated the earth entirely.
Who, blacks or human beings?
Blacks did. Black people.
And why weren't they in Europe?
We were in Europe. You were in Europe first?
Who was? You were?
No, black people were in Europe first. We were
And then what
globally
happened?
black
And then
first.
they just packed their bags and left?
Oh no! I mean, you always had this colorist in this white mind frame, and it's already been confirmed that UNESCO has already confirmed we've been here and been globally black at least since mid Holocene. And as far as where did they go?
The
It's
Holocene?
the same.
Jesus.
What?
I said the Holocene. That's so far back that are they finding DNA?
What's how far back is mid Holocene?
Thousand? What's that's pre-woolly mammoth? That's like,
That's when you came to occurrence. Your allele didn't even mutate until about 6,000
is that
BC.
when Jacob made us in his laboratory?
You are the most earliest human. You do realize
Earliest
that,
or
right?
latest?
You are. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you are the latest human. Absolutely, you are the
Uh-huh.
latest human to come into contact, and so we would
The
need
new
to
and improved
correct
model,
the
then, huh?
history here. What was it?
The new and improved model, the
The
2.0.
new and improved model. Well, how are you new and improved when you were starving and you couldn't even cultivate any type of civilization over here in America? You
We
needed
were
us to do
building
that for you.
beautiful cathedrals when blacks were living in mud huts fortified with cow dung.
Your cathedrals were built by Moors.
Moors in Spain, they were building
Yes.
cathedrals in France and
And
England
we
and
already built
Germany.
them. First of all, we've already taught you how to be architects. They had to be
Then why
built
are you
by us
failing in
first.
Africa? If you
Who's in
guys are
Africa? I'm a black American.
no, but Africa is the similar genetic makeup. If blacks are such great people,
You
then why is
you went
Africa?
into Africa and completely pillaged
How could we
Africa.
do that if we're such inferior people?
I didn't say you were absolutely inferior. What I said was that you were a late people and you came after and you had to learn everything from us first.
Then why did we have to go through and teach Africans how to build
You
airplanes?
didn't teach Africans a damn thing. This is what you did. What you really did do is that you went ahead and already learned everything we've taught you 700 years in Spain,
Up to
while
what point,
Europe was
though?
completely dilapidated.
You taught us technology up till what point? The Stone Age, the Dark Ages. At what point had we
Uh,
reached parity
the
with the
ancient
blacks?
the ancient Greeks said that all their master scholars and mathematicians went to college in Kemet, Mesopotamia, and Timbuktu. So yes, black Africans did
Well,
teach
Well, the
Mesopotamia
thing
was
Europeans.
is
Greek.
that what is the earliest European civilization? Let's talk about that.
Um, God, I don't know
It's
necessarily what
late.
counts as
I
the
can
first.
guarantee you that.
Oh, it probably is. I'm not saying that there wasn't some out of Africa theory that people started in Africa or maybe Mesopotamia. Maybe that's not necessarily my point. My point is now that there are distinct peoples, what you might call five umbrella peoples of African peoples, East Asian peoples, Middle Eastern peoples, New World peoples, which are Native Americans, and then European peoples.
We
These are
are the
the
Native Americans.
these are the
All of those are
five.
black groups. What are you talking about, bro?
You're telling me a Japanese person is black?
Yes, Jomon culture artifacts have afros on their heads, slanty eyes, afros. Yeah, big lips, big noses.
You're
That cult. Those
confusing.
hold on.
You're,
Those artifacts are from 23,000 BC on Japan.
oh,
So
this is
yes,
revisionist.
they were Negroid peoples populating ancient Japan, and they even spoke Old Nigerian Bantu. So
And as
it's
far as what happened to those populations, it's repeated. You've been doing a genocide mission repeatedly throughout history. You think that's just a coincidence? One time over here in Australia, one time over here in America, one time over in Mexico
Who
and
was
South
genocided
America.
in America?
What do you mean? The natives over here were genocided. What are
There's
you
more
talking about?
natives now than
It
there
was
ever was.
genocided. They were genocided not only from your destruction, but also because of your diseases. You were
There's more
literally
Native
just
Americans
you
in
just came
America than
over here.
ever.
You already just had disease that just completely wiped out certain
And where
populations.
did syphilis come from?
You are the syphilis.
No, syphilis is a Native American disease that
hold on.
started in
He
America.
actually, hold on, he does have a point here. When they raped the Caribbean black people, my
Black
ancestors,
people weren't here
they
at that
picked
point.
they
Nah,
raped the black Caribs and picked up the syphilis
nah,
that the
there was
Caribbean
no
people were
blacks in the
already
Caribbean.
immune to, and they called it the Spanish disease or some shit when it got back to Europe. So it wiped out
Syphilis,
millions of white Europeans because
right?
they didn't
Same
know
thing that's
we had syphilis
like AIDS in Africa
endemically.
from you guys fucking monkeys
Hold on,
or
check this out.
monkeypox.
Syphilis was harmless to black people because it
Black
only
people
gives
weren't
you a
here.
rash in
Black
childhood.
people,
That is it.
black people are rash
When you turn
recipients.
12 and hit puberty, syphilis activates. It's so ancient to New World Africans. The New World black people
It
can't even say
activates.
Africans. We're from Asia,
It
so
activates at
it
12.
activates at the age of 12. The hormones from puberty triggered the native syphilis across the
All
Caribbean
right. If
in black
black people
children,
are immune
and
to
they
it, then
got
why
a
are they?
rash. They
Listen,
had a rash, and that was it. After a week or so, the rash went away, and that was syphilis.
no, syphilis is deadly to black people.
Spaniards
The
took this
Tuskegee
syphilis back to Europe
experiment was black
and
people
filled
being
mass
racked
graves
with
because their
syphilis,
recessive genes
and
could
black people
not
were
defeat the
studying all the
syphilis.
syphilis because they were spreading it to their wives, and they had a black nurse that was told them
Everybody in the Caribbean is born with it. They had it before they had sexual
yeah,
contact.
that's how promiscuous they are. They're like like
It's
animals.
ancient to those populations because they've been there a long time, asshole.
No, the Tuskegee
That's
experiment was
literally
black
why
people
the Colombian
dying
that's
from
that's
syphilis.
literally why Columbus's sailors spread it to Europe. It was not ancient to their lineages, so they had no immunity.
And same
They
for
wiped out.
smallpox in the New World.
They found mass graves all over England, Spain,
Europeans
France,
could handle
full of
smallpox, but the
mutated
New World
skulls from the
couldn't.
syphilis infection. White Europeans had zero tolerance for syphilis. They got
Uh huh. And
eliminated.
smallpox? Now do smallpox.
Smallpox was intentionally put on the blankets that they traded with Indians
Yeah.
in Canada and the United States.
Nah, it
So
wasn't
yeah, that
intentional.
oh,
Then why
and
weren't you immune
that's a
to it?
stated fact from
Why weren't you
from a
immune
Canadian
to it?
general.
Why
So he
weren't you
literally
immune
said,
to it?
put the smallpox on these blankets before we
Why
trade
weren't
with
you
these
immune
Canadian
to it?
blacks.
Why weren't you immune to it?
Same thing they did in Australia with the vials that they brought over
Why
on the
weren't you
ships.
immune to it?
Why weren't we immune to smallpox? Because we didn't have smallpox from fucking
Right.
animals.
So it's just a one for
We,
one
we didn't
trade off.
we didn't
The
get smallpox
smallpox
from
came into the New
we
World, and then
we didn't have
syphilis came out.
We didn't have an
Same thing.
ancient bestiality problem, so we did not
Well,
Please,
transfer
you guys
smallpox
started
from
AIDS
animals.
by fucking monkeys.
No, we
no, no,
didn't.
no.
That was Dr. Jonas
Let's
Bullshit.
Salk. That was Dr.
be
Jonas
clear
Salk
though.
and his
Let's be
cross
clear.
Bullshit.
contamination.
AIDS comes from Africa. Monkeypox comes from Africa from bestiality. We know this. This is you're believing
You,
in
you sure? You
nonsensical.
sure white people aren't in Central Africa in a German laboratory right now making Marburg virus and monkeypox into
God, I
new
hope so.
strains? They've been there since the 1970s, so it's not a
Good.
new thing. You know, Marburg looks a lot like Ebola, but somehow
Good.
targets German DNA. Isn't that
Cool.
weird?
We
That
need
a
to thin
German
out
town in
Central
Africa
Africa.
has the outbreaks of Marburg. Look that up, guys. Marburg virus. The only outbreaks have been in a German colonist town in
Right.
Central
Why
Africa
aren't you
and in
accepting
Germany.
the Tuskegee
The
experiment?
two world
Are
outbreaks.
you
That's it.
pretending like you
Marburg
can
virus
see
is a bioweapon made by white people that targets white people's DNA. And it's a white version of Ebola. It's a white racial version of Ebola. Look it up. You'll have a good laugh.
Man, that's a lot of nervous laughing coming from him.
I'm laughing because you're ignoring the Tuskegee experiments and you're just
Tuskegee
rattling off
1, Tuskegee 2, or Tuskegee 3? Which ones
one
are
in
we
the
ignoring?
American South that was spread by a black nurse, by the way, who recruited black men that were
So
already
that's
suffering from
Tuskegee 1.
syphilis.
That's Tuskegee 1. Okay.
That were suffering from syphilis and were dying from it and ended up dying from it because they were told
They,
that they were getting
they,
treatment
they,
when in fact
they
they were
were
just being
Not gone to
studied.
school.
they were
Listen,
not
You're gonna have
they,
to let me
hold,
speak.
hold on.
So if
They were
what
not
you're
dying
saying
from
is
it
black
because they
people
were
were immune
transmitting
to
it across.
syphilis, then
They
if
were
they
not
were
dying.
immune,
They
then
were
why
not
were
dying from
they
the syphilis
dying
though.
from it?
They were not dying from the syphilis. They were transferring it across huge swaths of the black community. That's
Good.
why they were selected
Black
because
people
they're
were
damn near immune to it.
black people were being promiscuous, so they were spreading it to one another.
Yeah,
White
but
people didn't have to inject
that
it.
that study went on for what 40 years, and some of those people didn't even die. So what are you talking about?
Well, some of them died from other things, but syphilis is deadly. It goes to the brain and it changes into a neural syphilis.
Yeah, in about 5 years or less. Why would they be doing a 40-year
No,
study
hell
on the
no. It
same
takes a
people?
lot longer than 5 years for it to change. Hell, Al Capone had it
It,
for
it,
like
it, it
30
does not
years
take longer than that. You know how we know? Because syphilis ravaged medieval
because of the
Europe after
Tuskegee
Columbus came
experiment.
back. No, Columbus brought syphilis. Columbus brought syphilis back to the Europe, and it wiped out everybody in 5 years or less. So what are you talking about, bro? It was a
It
huge
didn't wipe
disaster,
people
and
out
they
in
tied
5 years
it.
or less. People.
They
That's
tied
why they
syphilis
developed
directly
powdered
to
wigs.
Columbus's troops because it happened so fast, bro. So you're lying.
Now, then why would they develop powdered wigs to help people with late stage syphilis that lasted 15 years, 20 years after they had first contracted it? That's what powdered wigs are for.
So you're
Or
telling
male
me,
pattern
so you're
baldness.
telling me they just blames Columbus and his sailors because it spread, the syphilis spread specifically from
Who's
his
they?
ports.
Who's they? What are you talking
The
about?
white supremacists of the era who blamed Christopher Columbus for bringing back this new epidemic that killed them so rapidly that their heads were spinning as to where it came from, and they just said, "Hey, his sailors." It had to be them. It happened as soon as they got back. So it was a massive, rapid-acting virus that white Europeans had no resistance to.
Right? I'm conceding that nobody had resistance to it.
Every,
My point is that
Caribbean people had resistance to it.
Caribbean people didn't exist. Black people didn't exist in the Caribbean. They didn't
That's who they
exist
got
there
the
until
that's who they got the syphilis from. The lady who did the genome study on the European syphilis already found the Caribbean samples that had syphilis,
bullshit.
so
The
they were immune.
syphilis
Ask
came
them this
from
question:
mainland United States.
What color were
It
the
came from the
people
Caribbean.
did they fight in the Caribbean? Who were in the Caribbean then?
The Taino people were in the
What
Caribbean,
do they?
Taino.
What
You're
Taino
mispronouncing it.
was?
who have
But
been
Okay,
more or
and
less eradicated.
what skin tone are the Taino people of today? Because they're still indigenous
They
communities
look
of
like
them.
Florida Seminoles.
Okay, then Seminoles are Carib lineage. Those are black people
Mm,
from 1200 BC, St. Vincent and Grenadines, where
yeah,
I
but
was
trust me,
born. So I'm a black
there's
Carib
somebody
telling
who lived
you
in Oklahoma
those are
City
my
and
black
knows a lot of
cousins as well.
Seminoles. They do not consider blacks to be Seminole. They call you Logis. In fact,
so
in the
Who
so
are
that's
they?
Seminole
where
You're talking about the
you're
$5
you're always
Indians?
incorrect. What?
Miccosukee. It's Miccosukee language. They call black people
Yes,
Logis.
Miccosukee language. Yes. What about it?
I just said what about it? They call black people Logis.
No, the Miccosukee language is also
Yes.
native to us as well. We're talking about populations of Black people in Americas. Like I said, we've been here since mid house. We were the first people here. The Native Americans that you think of Native Americans now
Then
are the second
why
wave.
wasn't your technology here?
That
All
is
your
the second
cathedrals.
wave. That's the second wave. So you're talking
Uh-huh.
about real Native people to the Americas. That is Black people first. That's confirmed by
Where
UNESCO,
was the
NCBI,
cathedrals then that
Harvard.
you taught
So
white
let's
people?
be
What?
clear about that.
You mean the pyramid mounds that filled up the Mississippi
Yes,
No,
the
Delta
I
to the
pyramid
said
point where
mounds as well.
cathedrals.
white people were building their mansions on top of them? where they had
Pyramids
a
are
100-year-old oak tree on
low-IQ
top of it?
structures. I'm talking about cathedrals, flying buttresses,
Pyramids
arches.
are cathedrals, asshole, and they're bigger.
No, I'm talking specifically about European cathedrals, which were works of art and engineering marvels in the Middle Ages.
And built by
They,
the Blackamoors. What's your
that's
point?
my point. If they were
Right.
built by black people in Europe, then how come when whites showed up, where black people were already established by your claim, why weren't there cathedrals here that matched the European cathedrals in grand scale, in beauty, and tech?
They were here. The railroad companies of the United States are built on Indian pyramid grounds.
No,
Did you know that?
you keep conflating pyramids with
The
European
Moors
style
were assisted
cathedrals.
by
These are
Egyptian
temple
priests to
I
complexes,
don't
build the
give a shit about
aka.
cathedrals.
temples. I'm not talking
The
about a place where
Moors were
worship happens.
assisted by
I'm
Egyptian
specifically
priests
talking
to
about the
build the
architecture.
cathedrals. The Egyptian priests assisted the Moors in building cathedrals. All that science came from the Egyptian priests.
It was black Arabs and Western Africans who made the Blackamoor
Then why
Coalition
can't
until they hit
blacks
Germany, and
match
then the
the
black
European
Germans joined.
stuff?
Yes, we do
Why
match
They
it.
can't
still
blacks
pay
Yeah, yes,
homage to
match
it
blacks
it?
can
today.
match it.
You
Blacks can match it anytime.
Why
You
aren't
bounce to our
they?
music. You bounce to our
Hold
rhythm. You
on,
bounce
hold
to
on.
our culture right
Do
now.
they not understand?
Yes, we
Do
can
they
match
not
that
understand
anytime.
that the mound
Technology
builders,
is the
the
topic,
mound
not shaking
structures
your
of the
ass.
United States are just as complex, if not more so, than other cities' architectures? You have to align them from the air. You do understand that, right?
Have to align what from the air?
You have to
What's?
align the buildings with each other
I
pretty
understand you're
much
talking
from
about
the
buildings, but
air.
where?
So that math, that
Where?
trigonometry, and their geometry is dead ass
Where?
on point. In the United States, the Mississippi Delta cultures, they built huge temple complexes all the way across South Carolina,
Talking about the
Georgia.
the mound people, the snake
The,
mound people.
the Mississippi Delta mound builders built
Yes,
temple complexes
right. I'm
with
familiar.
multiple pyramids,
Yes.
astronomically aligned, and the
Uh-huh.
walls and
Uh-huh.
fences of these complexes have to pretty much be aligned from the air. So, because they don't have airplanes, they're doing it from
Right.
the ground, which means their architectural knowledge is far more advanced than European knowledge.
That's laughably asinine to think that a mound is as technologically advanced as a cathedral in France, as the
Multiple
Notre Dame.
mounds across miles of acreage,
A zillion
and they're
mounds
all
over a
lined up
zillion
perfectly,
miles
and they're
pales
lined
in
up
comparison to the
perfectly
beauty and
without laser
scale
survey
of a
technology or
European
balloon
cathedral.
aircraft.
It
So what are you
pales in
saying?
comparison to a Japanese style architecture. A mound
Japanese
pales
style
in
architecture is built by black
comparison.
people as well. What does that have to do with geometry and trigonometry?
The fact that black people cannot match the success that you keep claiming
They
in
they did it
Africa
with the
now.
mounds.
Have you
They
seen
did
the
it with the
space programs that
they did
Africans
it
try
with
to
the
put forth?
mounds.
It's fucking laughable. They can't
Can
build.
you build a temple complex that is aligned within
I'm a
millimeters
professional builder.
from
I
several
build
miles
things.
away without seeing the site visually?
Yes, I build things all the time. I've been a
Okay,
surveyor.
so you
I
got
built
that
things.
from black cultures, and one of them was endemic to
No,
Americas. They're native.
did not get them from black cultures because black people
You
cannot even
totally
build
did.
an airplane. They
Your
cannot
railroad
drill a
Listen,
well.
companies,
what
your
it what it comes
railroad
down
companies
to
chose
again.
to
I
build.
asked him already, Lou. I said, "What is the earliest European architectural structure? What would that be? What is your earliest civilization?"
You didn't ask me earliest
I did
structure. You
ask you
asked
that.
me the
So,
earliest
well, what is the
civilization.
earliest?
Structure?
Yeah.
Probably longhouses and huts, which are probably about technologically equivalent to what Africans are building now. So I would say that Africans are about a millennium behind Europeans
No, 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 no,
and the
no, no, no.
East Asians.
Again, we always predate you. In fact, even Hitler knew that. Hitler knew that the longer you kept on going
Oh,
back,
I don't
you
mind
kept on
Hitler a
finding these
bit.
things.
In
I know
fact,
you don't. That's why I said it. He's your idol, right? He knew
no, I don't have
that your
idols. I'm an
history
adult.
was full of shit because you are always late. You almost died twice, both plagues. And who saved you from that? The Moors did. And then he went over
The
into Spain.
Moors? You talking
Oh,
about
yes.
Blackamoors. Let's get on code. Their name
the
is Blackamoors. They never called themselves Moors.
you talking
And
about
then,
the Islamic
yeah.
Maghrebis that
Okay,
moved into
yes.
the Iberian
Are you trying to
Peninsula?
say they're
They were
not
not
black?
Islamic. They were not Islamic. Let's
Are you
get on
saying they're
code.
not
They
black?
were not
You
Islamic. They
talking
had
about
multiple
Berbers
religions.
or Maghrebis?
So are they not black or what?
Berbers are not black.
Are the
Hello?
Maghrebis
Moors
are
not
not black.
black?
Hello?
Moors? No, they were not black.
The Moors were absolutely
Black
black because you can't
Blackamoors.
find one detailed information
Berbers are
that says they were
black,
not black.
dog.
Hello?
You go to Africa right now, you can look at Berber, they're black.
I'm in Africa right
Oh,
now.
And
I
I'm
know
African,
Berbers.
I'm telling you this,
He
bro.
Moroccan
knows they are
Berbers.
black. Hold on. He knows they're black. It's a slur. It's an anti-black slur in their local history.
Berbers? No,
Hey,
it's not.
can I hear?
I know
Berbers are
Can you
Berbers.
guys hear me?
phenotypically black-looking people.
Can you guys hear
They're
me?
maybe they're similar looking to Maghrebis. I mean, as far as phenotype goes, they look a lot like Maghrebis.
But this is what I need you to do. I need you to find one antiquity scholar or historian that notifies and says that they are something other than black.
Can you guys hear me?
Uh, you want me
Yes,
to
we hear you,
find
Jack.
like
There's no
Plato or
description that
Aristotle?
yes,
Or
exactly, because there's no description that says they're not black. They all say they're black. You're talking
that's a
about
strange
the
standard.
Song of Roland. Why wouldn't it be the standard? Because all
Maroc,
the standards say they're
Why
black.
would they frame their reality, their identity on whether or not
Because
they
I
count
have
as
there's
one?
multiple realities, if you want to talk about it, that historians
Well, they
that
wouldn't also
documented
say we're
that they
not
were black.
Chinese. They're not also going to say we're
They
not.
said black is ink in the Song of Roland. You also have an
What is the Song of
his
Roland? What is that?
look it up. Everybody can go look up the Song of Roland. Talk
Well, I
about how
can't look
black
it
is
up.
inky.
Can I close this down and still not leave the chat so I can Google?
Yes,
Or
you can. You can go to Google and it'll still be here. Yes, absolutely. Song
oh,
of
okay.
Roland. They're talking about how black and inky they are. All right.
Dark
And
like ink, black, BLAC in High German. Black is literally dark as ink. So black skinned, dark skinned, melanated.
can you guys
That's
hear
where the
me?
black in
irregardless,
Blackamoor comes from.
Hello?
It's weird how he doesn't know Germanic history or their references to an invasion.
on top of the fact that there are multiple languages that codify the fact that when you talk about what more means, it literally means black anyway. Black or Negro, especially when it comes to this Latin language that was invented by the Moors, I'm sure as well. Again,
Oh yeah,
700 years,
Maroc?
700
Mari.
years of rule.
Mari means
Hello?
dark as the oceans or the seas, literally
Absolutely.
black skinned. So there's no confusion. Black Amari means dark like ink Germans with dark like ink Africans or Arabs.
Hello?
The end.
Can you guys hear
Right.
me?
So all I have here is the Song of
Let me go
Roland.
look it for you. How about that? I'm gonna find it.
Oh, I have it, but I'm
Okay.
looking it up, and it's in the context is that Charlemagne was fighting the Muslims in Spain, who you guys call Moors, and it's talking about the last standing at Saragossa. Um,
Hold on. His name is pronounced Carl de Magna. It's not Charlemagne. That's some sissified Anglo-Saxon pronunciation. He is a
Hello?
Blackamoor German, so he's Carl de Magna,
do you speak
which
German?
means Real History Worldwide broke down the pronunciation from the High German. So yeah,
Hello?
he's
Can
a
you guys hear
Gaul.
me?
He is a black Gaul of ancient Europe from 45,000 BC lineage, and he knows how to pronounce his name with hard K's like every other African.
Hello?
Carl de Magna, the greatest of the chiefs. A Carl is a chief, Magna means greatest, and they had Roman contact. That's why he's speaking Latin in his title.
Well, Charlemagne he was German, but he was also French. If I remember, so you can pronounce it
Frank,
differently.
the
It's like
people of
saying
France are called the Gauls by the Romans since
it's like the
antiquity.
difference between Anthony and Antonio. If somebody calls somebody
They,
Anthony or
they,
some,
they are not the same population, bro. Frankish people are literally black Gauls. The
oh
other
my
part of them
God,
is
you think everybody
the
Maroc?
is black?
Portuguese
Hello?
are black Gauls because Julius Caesar chased that tribe into Portugal.
Maroc,
Was
And
can
he
I
Julius
say
said
Caesar
they're
not
what?
something?
black?
The war with the
Hello?
Gauls. Kill them
Wasn't
all,
Julius
man,
Caesar
woman,
black?
child. They are tall, dark, red-haired, and fierce. That is black people with an incest gene for red hair. They are clearly inbred Gauls.
Wait, they were black gingers?
Maroc,
What do you
can I
call the
speak?
Irish? Black
Maroc,
gingers.
Yes.
They're called black Irish.
Did they have blue
Yes.
eyes too?
Hold
Maroc,
on.
can I speak?
Go
The
ahead, Jack.
Danelanders had black skin
Hold
and
on.
blue
Hold
eyes.
on,
We
Lou.
have the
Let
genome
me
on
see
that.
what let me see
So
what Jack wants.
what's black about them at this point?
Go ahead, Jack.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jack Nicholson. That's not my name, but anyway, I'm in Nigeria. I'm from Nigeria, and I just wanted to correct some misconceptions. So the N-word speaker guy. I mean, he has said a lot of stuff that has been wrong, but you guys have also said a lot of misconceptions, like about Berbers. I mean, Berbers aren't black
Nope.
to begin. What?
I'm agreeing with you. Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm saying that Berbers aren't black to begin with. Certainly, the Moors, there were some blacks amongst them. Like, there's no doubt about that. Maybe like 10% because of like the fusion between Sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. but the majority of Moors were Berbers, like, and Charlemagne as well.
All right, Jack. So guess
Yeah.
what, Jack? I'm gonna need you to do your history check. Pull any reference that says that the Moors are described as anything other than black. Go ahead and do it.
What?
Even their name in
Pull
German.
any description that describes the Moors as anything other than black.
No, I'm not saying they were not dark skinned. I'm just saying that they may not, they yes, some of them I'm not
Don't
saying they
don't
weren't dark
don't.
skinned.
There's no other people at that time that were in Africa going into Spain that were not black. They were black people. So you're not going to scapegoat it talking about some dark people. No,
No,
describe
no,
anybody else as being other
Okay,
than black. They're
so
talking about
National
black in
Geographic
ancient.
is the resource I just looked about your question about where and this term you keep using, blackamoors. Um, there is such a term, and you're right. Blackamoors were black, but there were what they call white Moors also, and
Then pull the reference
and
because
then
I've already posted
plainly
the reference.
they just called others Moors. So it seems like it's a catch-all term to
Nope.
describe people who were not European, who are otherwise some sort of darker skinned
Then
people.
post it.
Post what?
yeah.
Again, I'm going to say this for both you and Jack. Post any description that says that the Moors are anything other than black in description.
Okay.
From
The term
South.
Moor, derived from the
Let me
ancient
get something.
Maori, is an exonym first used by Christian Europeans to designate the Muslim inhabitants of the Maghreb, who I was just calling Maghrebis,
Yes.
the Iberian Peninsula, which
Okay.
is Spain and Portugal
Okay.
and then
People are not
Sicily,
a
Malta.
geographical location. Okay, go ahead.
You said you don't want geography. What'd you say? I didn't hear.
That people are not a geological location, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, people are tied. I mean, an Irish person is a genetic
Okay, well, hold
person
on. I
in
know his
Ireland.
source is wrong because it's not the earliest citation for the word Maori. So that's ancient Greek, and they're referring to the Black Phoenicians who came up from Eritrea
Latin,
and the
not Greek.
Levantine
Not
region.
Greek. It's Latin.
It's definitely Greek because the Latins stole their language and phonetics from the Greeks.
Oh,
So
they're certainly linked. There's a lot of similarities. They
it's
stole
not
their
certainly
religion.
linked.
Their
Rome
religion is very
invaded
similar.
Greece and oppressed them and mocked them for their speaking patterns. So it is definitely Greek. Maori predates Latin.
It says
So
Maori is a Latin designation for the
okay,
Berber population of
so
Mauritania,
Maori in Old
located
Greek,
in the part of
Maori
Numidia,
in Old
present-day
Greek,
northern Morocco and
Maori in
northwestern.
Old Greek, because Greek has primacy, literally
I don't really
means
care about that.
the
My
black
point.
sailors who sail up every year to sell us olive oil, wearing white tunics and turbans.
Sailed
Hello?
where? In
Sailed
Greece?
up to us in Greece from the south, Africa,
I thought you said the
to
Greeks were
sell.
black.
The Greeks are black, and they're describing
Okay.
the Phoenicians,
Oh,
So
who are
the blacks were
also
describing
black.
blacks.
Yes, the word Maori. That's what they're referring to.
So
It's a
they said
specific.
these
It's
people who are
specifically
different from
referring
us.
to black Phoenicians. That's it. Not all Africans, not Arabs.
If they were the
Phoenicians.
same people, then why would they need to make such an explanation that these people come from another place? Why wouldn't they just say Greeks
Because the
sailed to
word was
Greece?
invented for their significance. The
What was
significance
significant
was
about them if
the
they were the
olive
same
oils,
exact people?
the olive oil press technology that they made in Middle East, the Levantine
Racially,
region,
though. I'm
and
saying
the
racially, what was
vineyard
the
the vineyard
significance?
technology they brought to the black Greeks, and building stone piers, which is where we get the word mooring, or in French, piers. The
My
word
point
Pierre
is, if
means black
somebody is
man's
of the
nation.
same tribe, my point is
Pierre,
that.
they're not the same tribe at all. Phoenicians are not Greeks. Phoenicians are Africans. Greeks are Afro-Europeans.
But you said
wait,
Greeks were
Phoenicians are
black.
They're both black. They're both from Africa. They're different lineages.
So if everything's just black, then everything is just
Yes.
black.
Yes, that's what you're not grasping.
It,
Africans colonized the earth by
it just
100,000
seems like a
BC.
semantics argument at
Everybody's
this
black.
point.
Okay,
Then why
everyone's
not just call
melanated. There you
everybody
go.
white?
Everyone's
Lucifer.
melanated.
Why not just call everybody white then?
The fuck?
Because you didn't come into existence till your allele didn't mutate till about
That thing just went
6,000
black.
years.
Then we're not black.
Look at
At that
this.
point, you are morphologically something else. Yes, you are white at that point. But guess what? Again, when it comes to these mutations don't happen suddenly. It's a gradual mutations, which means we
Right.
were
Some of
globally
them are
black.
beneficial,
We were
mostly.
globally black even longer into the well past the mid Holocene. That's only when you came to existence.
So
Okay,
how did
hold
these
on, hold
black
on. I got a
people
question for
in
him now.
northern
What is the benefit of albinism to the human species or any mammalian species?
helps you absorb vitamin D in the colder climates? So that's the reason why Irish people are so fair skinned and equatorial people are such dark skinned. It's because the dark skin, the melanin, it's a natural sunblock which prevents them from being burned. Similarly, the light skin up in the northern areas allows a white person in colder climates to absorb vitamin D and also
Well,
stay a little bit warmer because they don't want sunblock. And so that just makes me wonder how if the Ireland was originally inhabited with blacks, and let's say Finland and Iceland and all of these extremely cold, dark places, were they suffering from vitamin D deficiency? Because we know that they weren't drinking milk because blacks are so often lactose intolerant. So how were blacks getting their vitamin D? They would be incredibly sickly.
from the
Bantu
melanin.
blacks are lactose intolerant. Pastoralist blacks in Africa, whether it's the Maasai or nomadic tribes, are not lactose intolerant and they drink milk and drink cow blood. They live by the cow, die by the cow.
Okay, fair enough.
And
So
by the
tribe.
way,
So our
lactose
plant.
intolerance is a beneficial mutation, so it's superior to lactose tolerance because children are supposed to be weaned off of milk at a younger age to increase the population. So there's a Darwinian model
White people don't
that
need to
says
be
there's a
weaned
benefit.
off. White people can drink milk forever. It doesn't bother us. So our
Exactly.
friend Jack,
That's a flaw in your biology. That is not a benefit.
it
The
sounds
longer
like a
you
benefit.
the longer you have a bias to his drinking milk, the longer you're not gonna wean from your mother,
So
which means the birth rate is
Jack, would
reduced.
you say that the African tribe, you made a distinction between two different Africans? Bantus can't handle milk, and then you said a second tribe can handle milk. In fact, they live off of milk. Would you say that it's a flaw in their genetics that they can drink milk, or is it something beneficial that they can expand to a bigger dietary standard?
Uh, it depends. Like if you're going to be a herdsman, you obviously need to drink milk. You're going to be dealing with cows. I mean, it really just depends on your environment. But what you said is kind of true. I mean, for some environments, if you're a hunter, for example, your children need to learn to be independent faster. So lactose intolerance could be an advantage. For example, with Inuits, in those like harsh, cold environments, the people there are very lactose intolerant because kids need to be independent at a young age to hunt seals and stuff like that.
They don't drink. Did the
I've
Inuits
never
have
heard of a black
access
person
to?
being lactose intolerant, but I know for a fact it's not a benefit for a species to be lactose tolerant. So, moving on, I got a question
It's
about that climate
where do
adaptation
Inuits
fallacy you
have
just repeated
access
there.
to milk? What kind of
Hold on.
mammals
What?
do Inuits have access to? They don't have cattle.
Hold
So is
on,
it
hold
like
on, hold on.
seals milk?
You made a claim about albinos being adapted for colder environments, and I have debunked that claim for at least 2 years now because there's no evidence backing that up whatsoever.
I don't give a shit
It's like,
about albinos. I know that in
well,
Africa they're oftentimes hunted
well,
for.
if you have pale skin or pale features, you are 100% an albino.
No, I'm
Noah.org
not.
labels you as an albino.
Albinos lack any kind of color. They can't tan. They're oftentimes blind.
Yeah,
They have no
that's what you've
natural.
been led to believe by Hollywood. That is not what the
No, I.
Noah.org official albino skincare
There's a
and
school for
healthcare
the
website
blind
says.
that I grew up about a mile away from. In
Yeah.
about a.
You're describing, okay, so you're describing OCA1 type albinos.
Uh-huh.
Not only
Yeah.
have they confirmed 7 types on the NOAA healthcare site for albinism, they've already confirmed there are 9 types now. So they have to expand that repertoire already.
All
So
right.
there are 9 types of albinos on a spectrum of albinism. You understand that? So white
Right. I was
people are
familiar.
considered OCA2. The entire race falls under OCA2, and all the other mulattoids go from
Right.
3
As
upwards,
right. I know
including
that
black
I
Africans.
know that there's different types of albinism. My point.
They're all albinos then. What's the semantic point you're going to try and make after confirming they have albinism?
My argument's not one of semantics. It's that people who can go from light skinned to tanning like a Swedish person would. They get a kind of a golden color skin.
Uh-huh.
They have brown eyes that can shield them from the sun. They have green
Uh-huh.
eyes. They have blue eyes. This is not
Uh-huh.
albinism. This
That
is
is, according to the officials who do this for a living,
What
You are
officials? Can you
100%
put a link?
NOAA.org, NOAH.org, an official international website that takes care of albinos for who knows how many decades. They've already figured out, oh yeah, albinos can have brown skin, curly brown hair, swarthy skin, brown eyes as well. They're still suffering from the OCA gene defect, which means they don't get sufficient melanin to be a black human. If you're not a black human, you're an albino of some sort. That's all they're finding out.
Right. So Japanese are albino, Korean, Native Americans are albino, Inuits are albino,
Correct.
Native Greenlanders are albino. So albino is now the standard, and then the outlier is black.
No, the outlier
Why
is still
wouldn't that
the albino spectrum because they're not the dominant population or
Of
reproductive
course they
output
are.
of Mendelian genetics.
Everybody on the planet is albino, with the exception of the African continent and Australians. I guess you consider Australians to be
You're still
black.
not understanding the representation numbers. Up to 10% of a population is some sort of albino if the population is healthy. The other 90% are just black people. That's from ancient times till now. They checked ancient China for the yellow gene. That yellow gene was only 10%
So
of a
you
100
think that
million man population.
90% of the modern Irish are black, and then the other 10% are
90%
albino?
of the ancient Irish were black. They've been raped by the Anglo-Saxon albinos, cross-matching their recessive albinistic
Why did they
genes,
tolerate such
creating
a
the white
small
Irish.
portion to rape them? Why did
Because there was
10%?
a genocide, buddy boy. That's how
Why
white
would
people do
10%
things.
be able to genocide 90% if they're so advanced?
Because they ambushed them at those peace treaties, if I recall correctly. There's a old
Peace
Irish
treaties.
folk. There's a folk tale of them going to a castle under flag of truce, and all the
Machiavellianism.
Irish lords and nobles being massacred with hidden weapons at the castle. So you can look into Irish history.
Castles. There was castles now. These weren't
Yes.
just mounds and pyramids, but
Well,
castles.
There was advanced architecture across much of the ancient world long
What
before
year
white
was
people
this?
showed up. I don't know, but sometime around 500 AD, that's when the Anglo-Saxons came to take Britannia.
but let's also be
Land,
clear though, really quickly, because the
Anglo-Saxons came
reason
after.
so the reason why a lot of that went down, and you succeeded in being savages in that way, is because you needed to be savages. These people were advanced and they had much more empathy and they had much more moral compass, and we know that from certain aspects and laws, just like the 42 principles of Ma'at. The
Right.
Egyptians, for example, also did not. They were not a warring or a faction of peoples that went on to expand. There was no need to be
warmongers, that's the
warlike.
word.
What was
Right.
it?
East St. Louis is real peaceful, and
Warmongers. They
Chicago
were
is
not
real peaceful,
warmongers.
and
They weren't
Rwanda was real
warmongers.
peaceful. The blacks are the peaceful ones. The crime statistics bear that 13% of our American population is
Oh
black.
And we can
Lord!
talk
Now
about
he's
that too.
doing
We
the
can
60% of
talk
false,
about
murder is
fallacious
black.
we
data
can
sets.
talk
Jesus
about the
Christ!
crime rate too, because I can break that down and you'll lose on that subject as well.
What, that
We
13 to 60?
13 to
What?
60 of what?
So in America, if you compare America's black population, which is 13% of America is black. Similarly, if you look at the black populations of London or of Paris, the crime rates are very similar. So black
For
people behave
Israel, where they're
similarly in
framing
the
black
United
people for
States
crimes.
as they do in London, as they do in Paris. And it's unfortunate. If you're an African, you might not know this, because when the Africans come to America as immigrants, they do really well. They're really peaceful. They're very well educated. They behave. But the what we call the ADOS, American descendants of slaves, are African Americans, are 13% of the population, but commit 60% of murders. 60% of murders in America are black people.
He's already lying about the statistics. It
No,
was
I'm very familiar
non-violent
with the
crimes they were
FBI
tracking,
crime
by the way,
data.
buddy boy.
And
They
if you
said
adjust it for
they said
income,
50% of non-violent crime blamed on the black community. I call that bullshit, because police departments do not
60.
report crime, and neither do they prosecute white crime.
Yes, they do.
So
Police departments
no,
most
they do
certainly
not.
report
People
crime.
have caught them on camera releasing white criminals. So what are you talking about? We live in the internet age, buddy. We can
Then why
watch
is it
white
the
people get let
exact
go.
same in London and
We
in
end with
Paris?
Because they're doing the same thing across every white country.
And under sentencing them.
Under sentencing for severe felonies. They're giving mass shooting children no death penalty. They're letting them, they do parole for rapists. They
Well, they don't have death penalty for anybody in those states.
Violent child molesters get less time than black weed users. Not a drug dealer, a weed user will have 7 years hard time, and a white pedophile will get out in 3 years for good behavior, even though he's a violent felon offender against children.
And
Remember, they plant weed on those people.
And they plant weed and guns on black people, but they're not going to keep a white pedophile in prison. Period. So don't even fuck with me, bro. Your stats are the proof of white supremacy.
Then why are black neighborhoods hellholes?
Because there's no money going into them after white people depleted the
Then why do
economics.
black
And
people
also
need white
actively leeching the money. They literally steal it.
The white
what
businesses,
money?
the businesses in black neighborhoods are owned by white people. They're not owned by black people, or else
No,
black
they're
people
owned by
would have better
Chinese
neighborhoods.
people and
They're,
Pakistani
they're
people.
owned by white Chinese people. We're the black Chinese, bro. Yeah, that's right. You keep laughing. We can go to Mandarin China. Southern half of China has a ton of black people. They're not too pleased.
And I'm sure
China,
that they're behaving
the white
themselves just
Chinese
like the
keep
ones in
buying more
Chicago.
police every year. They know what's coming should anything happen to northern China.
Right, the
You
Chinese
keep
are evicting
laughing.
their blacks because, surprise, surprise, they're causing a lot of problems.
So let's talk about these so-called problems because if we're talking about these so-called problems, 10,000 people every year go to jail who are actually innocent people, and 2/3 of them are actually black people. That is going to be the overwhelming majority of the
I'm
people who
sure
are
these are
innocent
made
going
up
to
statistics.
jail. No, actually, that is from the Innocence Project. So
Oh, I'm
anybody
sure
can look
the
that up.
Innocence
This is
Project.
actually being
I'm going to
recorded.
trust the Innocence Project
Well, that's
statistics.
also trust the police because we talk about the Center of Policing Equity from major police departments.
I don't believe
show
in
that
equity.
blacks-
I believe in equality.
It is. I'm talking about a Center of Police Equity, which
I
is
don't. Equity
which
is a nonsensical term. Equity is
it
ridiculous.
is not a term. We're talking about an organization, you fool.
Any
Go look it
any
up.
organization that strives for
It is.
equity
It's
instead of
it's
equality is a
first of all,
ridiculous.
it's from a culmination of police departments around the country.
The
So
same
who's
police
lying?
departments
Are the
that turn
police
white people loose.
are the police lying when I state these facts right now, or what?
You just called the police liars. You
Why
just said
don't
that they turn
you?
white people loose.
Because they're not the ones. Because what happens is that they are liars. What we have to do is that we have to go in and do investigations on their own lying
I see.
asses
So
in
whenever
these
the police
departments.
do something
So
that
again, anybody
benefits
can look
blacks,
up
they're
the
truth
report
tellers.
on the Center of Police Equity, which is from the police themselves. A majority of police departments showed that blacks are targeted more often when adjusted for whether they were violent or not. Same with
So the police
Campaign
clean their
Zero.
act up.
Same with Campaign Zero holds no correlation, also concluding that when factoring in threat level, blacks being shot by police officers are less likely to be posing imminent lethal threat, but are
Right.
shot more often than whites posing lethal threat anyway.
Unarmed.
So in short,
Unarmed black
when
people,
you
right?
remove all the factors in any violent city, and was the cop in danger, and was that person violent, you know what the one correlation was? It was that whether they were black, it has no factor here. So your opinion is not.
Right.
You're always going to be this attainable whiteness that gets you over, and they're always,
Right.
always going to be a
Black
target
people,
on us.
I agree.
That is from
Black
police
people cannot
themselves.
attain whiteness. White people
Lucifer.
can show up in a deserted
Hold
island.
on. Let's gangbang on these statistics since he loves black crime so much.
Yes.
Let's talk about the traffic stops. During daytime, they've already proven there are more traffic stops of black citizens than at nighttime because the cops just can't see their black targeted victims. So the racial bias,
28-inch rims
the
and
racial
the
bias can
subwoofers
be
don't stand them
proven
out.
in 24 hours of operation of every single police department on Earth. So we don't have to go far. We can literally just pull the data, hacking, steal
So
their traffic stop data,
statistics are
check their race,
believable.
and see that they're incriminating black drivers more than they are white people by daytime.
That's why they
Period.
Lucifer.
That's why they banned tinted windows so they couldn't identify their victims of a genocide.
Lucifer. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
What started this space? Like, what did he say that you have an issue with?
Irrelevant right now, Jack.
He was talking about Southern American food like cornbread, macaroni and cheese. He was claiming that white people couldn't have cooked this food, and that black people taught white people how to cook this food.
Because well, let's talk about your cultivation. How
he thinks that macaroni and cheese is a black invention, and cornbread is a black invention, and he believes that black people have been in the United States for the beginning of time, and they weren't
Absolutely.
actually brought over on Jewish slave ships,
Absolutely.
that they were already here.
And that is
Whoa,
on record.
whoa, whoa,
Absolutely. Jack, you
whoa.
don't. Jack, I'm gonna save you the embarrassment now because that is confirmed by UNESCO,
No,
Harvard, and
I'm saying
CBI.
like
So
the
you can,
Jewish stuff. I'm
you
talking
can.
about the Jewish stuff. I'm talking about the Jewish. Like, come
The
on, like,
white
where did you?
Jewish boats.
Oh,
Let's
we know
correct
that
them.
the slave ships were Jewish. That's not even debatable.
White
Oh my
Jewish, because
God.
there's black Jewish as well. They were not involved.
They were Sephardis. Sephardic.
Those are black Jews until 1492 when they became white Jews.
Overnight or what?
During the Spanish Inquisition. You forgot about that little 300-year span of your white history?
No, I just don't understand the relevance. It seems like a non
The
sequitur.
Spanish Inquisition leads right up to the transatlantic slave trade now, don't it? And you know where the black Jews were? On the Barbary
No,
coast,
it
enslaving
actually
white people
doesn't.
that they caught in shipping
In
because
fact,
they're
in
Transatlantic
owed their
slave.
money.
1492, Columbus had to have a black person with him, if
No,
not
he didn't.
more, Pedro Nunez as well, to even help to navigate his ass over into the Americas. Because you really think that
Where is it you
Europeans or
think
the
Columbus
Spaniards really
landed?
knew he ran over here in the Americas, in the islands? Yes.
Yeah, in the islands. Okay, I thought you were going to say on mainland America. That's a common.
No,
What
absolutely
does
not.
that have to do with the white Jews running the transatlantic slave trade after the Spanish Inquisition purged all the Blackamoor Jews?
Sephardis are Maghrebi Jews. They're not white.
They are not. Sephardi specifically means a black Hebrew from Israel living in Spain. That's literally in the Anglo-Visigothic records.
Well, they're all from Israel. My point is that
A
Jack.
black Hebrew, a
I'm more
true
interested in.
Hebrew from Israel
I'm just
living in
okay.
Spain,
You don't have to keep repeating
1500s
yourself.
AD.
You don't have to repeat yourself. My point is that.
They're not Maghrebi. They're literally black Hebrews, and King James
What do you
requested
think?
them
Where do you think
specifically.
Maghreb is?
It does not include. It does not include the Levantine region.
No, it doesn't. But neither does Germany, and that's where Ashkenazis were.
Ashkenazis are white Germans. What's your point?
They're not Germans. They are Jews from the Levantine.
They are white European converts to Judaism living in Northern Europe. They're white
They didn't
people.
convert.
They did a study and found there was 4 white women, in fact, Anglo-Europeans. 4 white Anglo-Europeans are the first Ashkenazi genetic lineage of white Jews in Europe. So they are literally white bitches infiltrating into a black culture.
Wait, the Jews were black also?
What are you not understanding? That black people populated every region on Earth by at least 100,000 BC.
What I don't
That
understand is
includes
how that they
is the
could get
Middle East a
such a
place on
head
Earth, buddy?
start.
Hold on, wait, no, I got a question you're telling just now. Is the Middle East a place on Earth? Yes or no?
Can we?
Okay, it's full of black people. The original Eurasians, black people. Original Mongoloids, black
I
people.
understand your
Original
claim, my
Chinese,
friend.
black
I
people.
understand your claim. You don't need to repeat
It's
your
not
claim.
a claim, it's a fact. They have the
In a
genome
debate,
mappings
all there
for
is
all of these
claims.
areas. It's
So
not a claim anymore. It's supposed to become common fucking knowledge. You're pretty
repeating
dense
it
when
is a
I'm telling
waste
you
of
what
your
a fact
time,
is.
though.
I'm
Repeating
telling
it.
you what a fact is.
The best thing you can do when you're given time like this with somebody is not to repeat what you believe or what you think is
I
a
believe
fact.
you're stupid, so I'm going to repeat that you're stupid.
The point is that you need to defend it. By not repeating it, you're not doing anything for your cause. And the people that are
I
listening to you
don't
don't need you to
care.
repeat it.
Hold on.
You
There's a
sound like you
misunderstanding.
care.
Maroc is polite and diplomatic with you. I am not.
In word. So you do now agree that yes, we were globally black,
No,
and you have no history until very late, right?
you're
Isn't that correct?
gaslighting.
That's not gaslighting. Again, who then find the opposition?
What are you talking about?
Find academic opposition that
I'm not
says
going to do your research for you. This is
because I
nonsense.
already know the research. The research already confirms you're a late peoples who didn't come into
It-
mutation until mid Holocene, and even then you were still sparse.
Lucifer, can I say something?
Please.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, I've listened to this, and Lucifer, I think you're a very articulate guy. Obviously, I don't agree with most of what you said. I mean, the blacks, the Greeks, and all these guys being blacks. I just think that it's wrong. I think it's even a bit of a disgrace to our ancestors
It
for you to
is.
claim that they had the whole world and then they lost it, and we're only limited to Africa now. I
There
think
you go. He gets it.
exactly. That's a big.
They did not lose it. It was stolen through treachery. There's a big difference, bro. They didn't engage in wars of white people for shits and giggles and then fuck up and lose it. They were on peaceful terms with liars, and
And it
those
happened
liars
over
waited
and
for
over again.
disaster. Yes,
Fool me
literally, they
once,
used the
shame
same
on me.
tactic.
Fool me twice,
And
shame
then,
on you.
hold on.
Paradigm shift.
Are humans born with memories? No. So
No, but
one
their
trick that
neighbors
worked on
should
one
know what's going
generation,
on next door.
they can't because the white savages were burning all the libraries and killing all the survivors. So
Burning
how would they find out
libraries.
what happened next door without the internet or cell phone coverage?
Tell that.
The same way you guys were spreading all over the world. You had
That
boats, right?
that spread all over the world took hundreds of thousands of years. You do realize that, right?
But the thing is
Right.
that they even knew the greatness. That's the same reason why they were going all the way to Egypt just to consume dilapidated and deceased bodies for your own consumption because you
Right.
believe that black bodies will give you power.
Uh-huh.
They were also snorting it like drug addicts because
Like
that's part of their
albinos?
genetics.
Like Central Africa does to albinos? Cuts them up and snorts them and makes medicine out of them?
Yeah, and you know who
That's a
stopped
lie.
that?
That's
Do
a
you
lie.
understand? Hold on. Do you understand? It was the African kingdoms that predated colonial European times
What did
that
Jack
stopped
say?
that practice from happening. You realize that, right? Once the European powers
What'd you say
destabilized
about
Africa,
albinos, Jack?
I'm saying. I mean, I know the Congolese kill
Are you a white
albinos,
man?
but they
Hold on,
don't.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Stripper, are you a white man?
Thank God, by the grace
Let
of
me do
God.
this. Let me do this real quick. Let me do this. All right, so Stripper, what are you trying to say about Black history? What's going on?
My point is that black people were not in America pre-1619.
Huh?
That seems to be the I don't know. There's been two guys talking back and forth, and I'm not necessarily sure who's saying what at what point. But there seems to be a claim going on amongst this chat that black people were settling and colonized the entire planet from corner to corner, island to island,
Gotcha.
and that out of the ether, whites just decided to, I don't know, from a mutated gene, develop their own little sub tribes that made up 10% of the population. He says that 90% were standard blacks, and then 10% were these mutated albino type of, I don't know,
I mean, are
subset
you
of
not an
blacks,
imbecile?
at
and that
best,
they sprung up simultaneously or in quick succession and overthrew the blacks everywhere, undermined all of their technological advances, and then set them back to the Stone Age while simultaneously
The Stone Age.
propelling themselves off a springboard into landing on the moon at some point. It is silly shit, and
No,
so
that's the
that's my
truth. That's
point.
no,
it's
that's overall the truth. That's just a good summary. But as far as your claim about America, I'll say this, and then I gotta go.
Yeah, I got to go soon
I'll
too.
say, I'll say this. In regards to that claim, one thing I don't care what nobody say, but they can't refute. Sickle cell is a disease that originated in Africa 7,000 years ago. Since in
To fight malaria, right?
yes, adaptation. It originated. All haplotypes of it diverged from this single African origin 7,000 years ago.
Right.
So in Mayan remains, they've noted this since the 1940s and 50s. They found sickle cell in the remains of Mayans, ancient Mayans. So if
What,
you
in the
just put
DNA? Like in their like they found tissue that had DNA in it, or
no
what?
sickle cell, when you have sickle cell, they leave these ulcers on your bone. They leave
Oh, the
these
skeletons showed it. Okay.
yeah. There's a distinct disfigurement that comes about when you have sickle cell. And they found this in ancient Mayan remains. And they've even noted in these old 1940, 1915 studies, this is normally attributed as a Negro disease.
Right. How often
So
does a white man, a European man, get sickle cell? Is it almost never, or is it
if he has black ancestry, I mean, that's
he
just the in
has
and
to
out of
have
it.
black ancestry, more or less?
African. There's a singular African origin, and particularly
Huh.
the particular African type that carries this is the so-called Niger-Congo family. You find it most prevalent in this group. You don't really find it in Somalia. You find malaria in Somalia, but you don't find sickle cell there because they're not of that same EM2 carrying lineage. But that being said, I will always say that there's no disputing the fact that's basically genetic evidence that Africans were in the Americas before, uh,
And that's
1492 or
just one
whatever.
metric.
Couldn't it have
That's
simultaneously the human body have developed this protection against a disease simultaneously in two different locations?
that's quite impossible. That's quite
Impossible.
impossible. Yeah, lightning doesn't strike twice.
Well,
Lightning doesn't strike twice. So
I'll have to read about it.
Yeah, so
But
sickle cell in the Americas, that's all the proof we need that, yeah,
And and
we
let
were here.
and let me double down on that, Trey, because if we're talking about the greatest diversity principle, that it's much more likely to be a person of so-called African genetics involved, and you have to have both parents as carriers to produce that disease. We know that sickle cell is associated with renal dysfunction and kidney disease, both of which have been found in ancient Mayan civilizations, and that they were medically treated and found as a disorder, and it shows that it was a pattern, to my conclusion, that with higher probability affecting black people. In fact, the double down usually came from NCBI. It says it is currently unknown whether similar associations are observed in any type of Hispanic population. It's rarer with Africans than Black Americans, and Native Americans aren't even mentioned among the most common. So all signs point to the greatest diversity principle, which would be Black American.
Yeah, I put in the jumbotron. I put in the map distribution of sickle cell. You can pretty much see the particular African family that it really has its highest frequency in. It's the Niger Congo family. It's that West African type or whatever, modern West African type. But yeah, so that's
so do
why
they
I'm a
think that they sailed over there from Africa, or
I'll say this. Africans have been circumnavigating this earth since about 100,000 years ago. We've been sailing. Africans are the people who sail to Australia. Africans are the ones who sail to
right?
Easter Island. So
And
It
Japan.
wasn't just that.
when white people do this thing about, well, can you sail? I think that's the most asinine thing to say. We
Right.
literally sailed to every corner of the earth before you even existed. So when you sell, I mean, that's the dumbest shit ever, my opinion.
On top of the fact that it's already been vetted multiple times that it's very easy to even go from the Western Hemisphere to Africa over into the Americas with that current. Very
Yeah,
easy, even on reed boats.
But it's not easy to just drift onto Cyprus and populate it with ancient African genomes, which is what thousands of Africans by the caravan fleet did in ancient times.
Oh,
So
Cypriots are probably
And
black.
also, if you live or
the
if you
catamaran is a black
I
invention.
want to say something. Also, if you live around water, especially during mega leg chad, if you're a human, high functioning, and you're able to come to the conclusion that if you're around water, you can understand how buoyancy works. If you play around water, if you're fishing, anything, you understand how buoyancy works. That alone, especially how creative people were back then based on their point of view and their lives, people had to be creative to create boats. Boats were way more normal than they are today than back then. So it's understandable that whether it's Mega Lake Chad, whether it's the lake now, people will come to conclusion to create something that floats because they're around water all the time. And with that, mixed with being in West Africa, Mega Lake Chad, through our history, repeated history of understanding how water works, it's easy that they could have found the Americas. And on top of that, too, with the planet being the planet was during the ice age too. It's understandable that the water levels were low. If water levels are low, it's very very easy to sail to the Americas if the water levels are low. So what I'm saying is, I agree with you guys. It's understandable that dark melanated humans, whether they're haplogroup, spread all around the planet, but they were dark at first. That's a fact.
I'm looking at this map
Oh,
that your friend has posted here.
hold
These
on, I'd like to
African.
follow that up. They'd have to be dark to leave the Congo rainforest where our ape ancestors were albinistic. That's why we carry recessive genes for albinism and other pale genes. It was there from the beginning. But then we evolved into black people and became the master creature that we are today, the apex predator.
Then why are you struggling so much if you're the master?
We're not struggling.
Because we
That's
are
media lying to
because
you.
we are complacent with our prey, and that is a
Hey man,
misconception that white
look,
people have had
I'm
before.
from Kenya, Africa. We're not struggling. And before even the British and the Muslims and all that, I still have a rich history in my tribe, and we still have monuments and all those things and roads we carved out.
Right.
Everything, bro. Like we have all that.
When was the last time Kenya contributed something technologically
I
advanced
don't give
to
a fuck
mankind?
about Kenya. I'm my tribe. I'm Luya. Kenya is a term that was created by the colonialists. Fuck them.
Okay,
I don't care
so
about
the
them.
people in
I don't
the
care. I
Aboriginal
just care about
people.
my tribe. I care about what we did. I just
Okay.
care about my tribe, and I care about all the technological, all everything we do. That's what I
Well,
care
what's
about.
his tribe? Let's be specific about his tribe then. What is your tribe, Stripper?
My tribe, I'm Scandinavian.
Okay. What?
Oh,
What?
okay.
Hey. Oh.
And
What?
Oh
What?
Lord, he thinks he's Scandinavian.
Yeah.
Hold on, he
oh,
thinks he's Scandinavian.
The
The
original
black
Scandinavians,
the
the
black people
Laplandians.
of
Yeah, they were
Scandinavia
black.
disagree with that
I can't
concept.
hear you.
He thinks he's Scandinavian, even though the Icelandic parliamentarian literally said the people of the Vikings come from their sons and daughters of King Memnon of Ethiopia. So that's 1100 AD. The
One
guy's establishing
parliamentarian
Iceland.
said this.
The one of the founders of Iceland and Viking culture said, "Hey, we're sons of King Memnon of Ethiopia since the Battle of Troy, when
Right.
Memnon came over to Scandinavia and beat
Ethiopia
up
was
all of
Greek
our
though at the
tribes
time. That's
and
why
took
they're
over."
Greek Orthodox.
He said a black king from Ethiopia came over to Scandinavia, beat all the Viking chiefs, and became the greatest of their chiefs, and named his son
Are you talking about
Thor,
the prime
aka
minister of Iceland who got into that discussion with the Hebrew Israelites on the sidewalk? Is this the guy you're quoting?
I'm quoting a man from 1100 AD who established the Parliament of Iceland. Snorri something.
Sigurdsson? You talking
I
about
have the
Snorri
post somewhere else.
Sigurdsson?
Nope.
well, let's be clear. Either way, Stripper, because the Vikings don't have the most pristine history anyway. Because that history is quite disgusting. If you really want to get into it.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, because
And
I
The,
don't.
the Scandinavian.
I also want to say, a lot of Africans who base everything based off country are lost. The countries did not exist until the late 1800s. There's nothing like a
They had
country because
Exactly.
kingdoms.
They're
almost
all
everything was
white
kingdoms.
pigeons.
Everything was territories and
Yeah.
kingdoms. Everything that's a country is stupid, and everybody who follows that is a consumer of Western what do you call it, industrialism that's backed up by the banking system. Everything.
Jews.
Yep.
It's whitewashing of black history in Africa today.
Jew
So
washing.
there's no difference.
Uh,
This is a 3,500-year race war. When this white guy comes in here and tells us, "Oh, us albinos just took over in a blink of an eye," no, the fuck they didn't. They took every single cautious move that they could and waited until black people were at their weakest, either from natural disasters or civil wars, after racially integrating with their white concubine women, and then they would attack. They would cut your throat at peace deals and peace
Oh, they
treaties,
got you
and
with the
that's it.
pussy?
You have not heard white people brag about an open war between them and black people that they won, because they didn't win them.
They've won all of them.
Reminds
Lucifer,
me
can I
of
say something?
Vietnam and Korea.
Name a war where black people fought white people in ancient history and the whites won outright.
Lucifer, can I
They
say
were
something?
they were setting up colonies in Africa. King Leopold was
After the
butchering them.
1600s, name a war before the 1492 where white people said, "Hey, black people, we're coming at you," and the black people were like, "Cool." Alexander the Great
The
of
Romans
Macedonia.
conquered Carthage.
They did not conquer Carthage. They
Yes, they
waited
did.
100.
Does
They
Carthage
wait
exist?
in
Carthage
the
wasn't
quote
black. It
in
wasn't black.
the
It
hold
wasn't
on,
even
wait, hold
black.
on. Remember,
Uh-oh.
when
Jack,
did
Uh-oh.
you need a
Carthage
history
fall?
lesson. Jack is
Carthage
next.
did
Yeah,
not
he's lost.
fall in the Second Punic War.
Yes,
Carthage
they
fell in
did.
the quote Third Punic War, aka a
Scipio
surprise attack.
Africanus went down there and kicked the shit out of Hannibal Barca.
How did he kick the shit out of him if he didn't do a Roman triumph on him? And Hannibal became an admiral in Turkey years later.
Hannibal
After
did
becoming
not. Hannibal was killed
after
in the
wait,
Battle of Carthage.
wait, what? Whoa, hold on. You're
No.
saying after the
No.
Battle of Zama
That's not
and the
what happened.
successful defense of the three walls of the city of Carthage itself, which were left open, by the way, Hannibal was killed after that series of battles. So he didn't run for senator of Carthage the next year and then line up all his black political enemies who allowed Rome to become such a problem and punish them and had the people turn against them the next year. You're saying
Yes.
all that didn't happen, and then
Hannibal
after he retired
Hannibal
from being
was
a senator,
Hannibal was
as an
killed
old
by the
man,
Romans.
he was still writing letters to Scipio Africanus back in Rome, and Scipio was dick sucking him, talking about, "Hey, me and you are bros, right? Me and you are bros, right?" You didn't read
He
any of
got
these
get on
letters
him.
that the Romans published about Hannibal talking to Scipio, talking about, "Oh yeah, if I had a great enemy, it'd probably be you, Scipio." Just pretty much masturbating this white guy's ego.
Right, I thought
While
you
the
said
whole
that
time
the Romans were black though, so now they're white?
they have white concubines in the Roman society. That's why they're going to war with African states. What do you not understand? The Goths are white migrants.
You seem to be alternating between Romans were black and then Romans were white. So when the Africans beat
The Romans were biracials, so they can be both black and white.
Also,
so when the Romans do
Etruscan
well,
culture is a black culture. The
right,
Latin
so
culture is
when
a
the
white
Romans
culture.
do well, they're black, and when they do something you don't like, that's because it's the white part, right?
It is literally the white part. That's who's putting them up to these wars. What are you not
Right.
understanding?
Hey, history is history.
They call themselves the Roma specifically for their racial identity
Right.
as biracials.
And
they
so
stated
Scipio
that.
Africanus did
Hold
not
on.
Hannibal.
Let me quote some Romans for you. It's like, we are the
Answer the
Roma.
question.
We are the Roma, not like our mothers, the Sabines, who were black rape victims, nor our fathers, the Latins, who were white trespassers in Italy under the Etruscan rule.
Right.
So we are the Roma means we are biracial. We are both black and white. That is what they're stating to everyone in that time period.
And so whenever the Europeans, the Romans beat the Carthaginians, Hannibal,
They didn't beat Hannibal. He was never presented at a Roman triumph.
Carthage doesn't exist anymore.
He does not. They do not beat Hannibal because they had to wait 150 years to attack Carthage for the third time. So Hannibal and his children
then
are
the third
alive,
time they beat
keeping
them. I'm
Carthage
talking about
alert.
the Second Punic War.
The Second Punic War is a lie that they revised because they did not beat Hannibal. They said Hannibal was shattered at the Battle of Zama, 10 miles away from Carthage. Okay, Hannibal left the field in proper military order according to everyone's records. He had his whole army, even though it was a bloodbath for the hoplites versus the Roman centurions.
Right. The
So
Battle of Zama.
How did he lose his cavalry on that day and still walk back with his entire army intact? His reserves are still. What are you talking about, bro? He's surrounded by cavalry and he outran them. Get the fuck out of here! He won the battle and left.
Who won the battle?
Hannibal.
No, Hannibal lost the battle. That's why it wasn't
Then
called
how was he not captured by the Roman cavalry that won?
Because he fled the fucking battle.
He did not flee the battle. He left the battle with his troops in full functioning order.
No, he didn't. He was defeated. You don't leave. You don't run away and say, I won.
You can't have a full army to defend the open gates of all three walls of Carthage the same time period after you just got your whole army deleted.
They lost. They sacked.
They did not lose. Scipio said they retreated in order, and he retreated in order as well. It was a bloodbath. They came to a draw. Scipio won the cavalry fight and was about to get his decisive victory, and then was scared that Hannibal had a deception in store. And he said, "Yep, I'm going to retreat. I'm going to take my losses right here."
Definitely won by the Romans.
Here's another reason. Here's another way why we know he didn't die on that battlefield, because they would have made that a
I know he didn't die
holiday.
on the battlefield.
You just said he died on the battlefield 2 minutes ago.
I did not say that he died on the battlefield.
Yes, you did.
I said that
he said he died at the Battle of Carthage. Okay, Carthage had Hannibal as a senator the next year, according to Roman records, and he was punishing.
He fled the battlefield. I said he
and then
fled.
You said he died at the Battle of Carthage.
No, I said he was defeated.
You literally
in the battle
said that earlier. No, you said he died.
Either you misunderstood me or I misspoke.
Even if he was defeated at the Battle of Carthage, the tradition for the Roman Empire at this point
was to
have a Roman triumph.
Okay,
which means they take the POWs, drag them through the streets, make an example of them, and then execute them in the Colosseum. Hannibal was not subject to a Roman triumph because he did not lose the Battle of Zama. What the fuck are you talking about?
Then why did they sack Carthage? Why did he have to flee to Anatolia?
They waited 150 years to sack Carthage, so that means Hannibal did not lose at the Battle of Zama. Or are you not putting the clues together yet, you high-functioning retard?
Right, whatever you want to call them. The Sephardi Jews owned all of the slave ships.
The Sephardi Jews were evicted to Morocco in 1492, bro. The black Sephardi Jews were kicked out of Spain. The white Ashkenazi Jews took their place in Spanish economies.
Yeah. Let me just finish this point.
White people like to cosplay as black factions that have good reputations. That's what he's citing right now.
Like the $5 Indians.
That's what I'm saying. Like but what I would just say is that in conclusion would be that Lucifer, I just think that you should read some African history. There's no point in claiming like the Carthaginians or the Romans, they weren't black. I mean, they had their own thing.
We have the artifacts. They were definitely Negroids, bro. They have Afro and Anglo-Negroid features. They're mixed. We just posted the new bust of Alexander the Great. So what I was saying about him being biracial from historical records is also confirmed in granite. He is a big nose, big lip, light skin with curly hair. Like they have a bust of him. He is clearly a mulatto.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great was biracial.
Alexander
He was
the Great of
biracial.
Macedonia. His mother was black, an ISIS snake worshiper. That was a slur they kept using against her during his lifetime. His mother was a black royal of Macedonia. The Macedonians are Pelasgians, black Greeks. The other Greeks said out loud, "Hey, you guys are so weak and pathetic. We will kick you out of being called Greeks if you keep this up."
You have to,
And then a
y'all
white
have
man
to
came in and
understand,
conquered them.
biracials mixed with each other for so long that they did never consider each other black or didn't consider each other white. They just considered themselves their own race.
Okay, fine. But if
Exactly.
the
They're
Greeks were black,
narcissistic assholes.
but if the Greeks were black, wouldn't there be any traces in their language, of any like African language or something?
What are you talking about? Their genetics is African.
No, I mean like their language.
Someone posted the MLA study on them. They have fucking
I don't
African
think
genetics in
language really
Macedonian populations.
bears the weight here
No,
because we know that when people move, they
But,
just make some of their own languages. We have the same thing when it comes to these so-called Nubian populations who came from Kemet in Egypt, and then they went down to Meroe, and they decided to make their own language as well, not too far away from mainland Egypt. So it's not really a thing to sit up here and try to make a claim that the language has to be the same.
no, it doesn't have to be the same. I mean, when two populations mix, you'll see similarities in their language, like the Franks. Their language has a lot of Latin influences because of like what they call. I mean, even French today is a Romance language. You see those kind of like influences, but Frankish words are still in French. I'm saying that if the Greeks were black, you should see some African influence on their language.
the Macedonians, the
The
hard K is
Macedonians.
proof. If you hear a hard K, a hard consonant sound, that's an African inheritance. The soft C, soft S, TH, CH, those are Anglo-Saxon linguistic inheritance across the earth. White people come in and have genetic recessive lisps,
Wait,
and they cannot pronounce African terminology at all. That's how
like
they change
what?
the word. How they change the word Kemetic all the way into Egyptic.
No,
They're terrible. They
what
can't pronounce
consonants
words
are you
because they don't
talking
have full
about?
palates.
What consonants are you talking about?
This is every continent. This is Asia. This is Africa. This is Europe.
No, consonants.
What
Consonants.
consonants are in the
K,
language?
the J sound. What was it? R's, rolled R's get deleted. They have L's that get changed to R's. They have C, like what is it? K becomes C, or C becomes S. So let's say the goddess Celeste of the moon, the Greek god Selena. There you go, Selena. That comes from Kalina, Kali of the moon. Kali, the East Indian goddess,
But I
is a
think his
Greek
point,
goddess
what he's
called
asking
Selena,
you is
because
how
the
can you
white
just claim that
hold on,
these are
no,
black sounds?
the white Hindus mutated the word Kalina, goddess of the moon. The black goddess Kali literally means black as a moonless night, jet black. They turned that into Selena, and then it became celestial and celeste, and all of these soft C sounds and S sounds. Those are all white albino deformities of linguistics. They are not the original hard K's of African groups.
No, okay, fine.
Kalina is a Greek goddess. She's also an East Indian goddess. The goddess
fine.
Kali.
I can agree with you that African, like I speak an African language, so I can agree that the consonants in African languages are harder. I'm just saying that while these K sounds exist in, and I don't think they're African in origin. I mean, if they are, I mean, if you could show me that they're African in origin, then that would be some good proof. But there are some key
You
features.
doubt the African origin of goddess Kali, black as a new
No,
moon.
I doubt the African origin of the K consonant.
The hard K consonants predate the vowels because Africans could pronounce vowels before they developed the gene mutation that made us Homo sapien, which specifically is longer vocal cords. 200,000 BC, someone was able to finally say a vowel. A, E, I, O, U, U, and sometimes Y. That's it. That's the true name of God, according to some European cultures, but I digress. Back to the genetics. That vowel mutation allowed people to sing and speak with new letters, and that is how you get your Bantu expansion across the whole planet by 100,000 BC.
Find full episodes of the podcast featuring straight facts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also, check out our Instagram for more Maroc Horus content, including the shop and our subscription service for exclusives. Peace, Maroc.